Alright, so day 2. And because the sun is out, which you can't really see, but if you look at the curtains there in the background, you kind of can see, I'm going to try my hand at retrobrighting some keys. And in order to do that, I have to pull the keys off. Now, I did go out and find myself a key puller, so that this could be a little bit easier. And I'm going to pull off some keys, and I think I'm going to start with my broken one because I want to make sure this little guy works. It should, but I just want to make sure it works, and pop, there it goes. Alright, so there's my key. And again, this one should not have come out with that core on it, but I think, whether I want to or not, I think I have to leave that little guy on there. So, key and spring. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of my keys, and I got some prep stuff over here for the retrobright. And yeah, I'll see you on the other side of this. Alright, I have all the keys removed, and this is a lot dirtier underneath than I thought it was going to be. I did have one problem. One problem. It's doing everything just fine, and then right there. I'll just grab a random key here, but this little plastic underpin here that normally holds the key inside the plunger broke off my left Alt key. Now, since you just pull the key out and put it back in, I'm not going to drill that out or try to pry it out. I am, however, going to super glue it back on. That's going to mostly because I'm probably not going to take the key off ever again, or if I'm just going to retrobright this the one time, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not too worried about it yellowing in the next 20 some odd years. I think I'll have other things to be concerned about within that time. So gluing the key back on, to me, is a lot easier than trying to source a entirely new plunger or drilling that out and trying to get a new key for it. So just glue the left alt key back on. Not that big a deal. Now, I did unscrew the top again. I'd actually put it all back together, and then I realized cleaning the keyboard in that with this still on is basically just going to push all the dirt underneath, and that wasn't going to do me any good. Now, I'm not going to take the whole thing off, but I do want to do a bit of scrubbing, so magic toothbrush here is going to help me out. I didn't show it, but every time I pulled off a key, the reason I didn't show it is because it took me like 2 hours. Not even, it took me like, I don't know, 2 episodes of Rick and Morty. So about an hour. So yeah, I cleaned off each of the keys, because initially I was like, I'm not going to clean them off, why should I? I'm just going to retrobright them. And then I thought, well, if you know the way yellowing works, it works by light hitting things. And if something is under something else or in shadow or something like that, it's not going to hit things. So because of that, I have to clean the keys off in order for the de-yellowing technique to function. Now, I know I'm not getting any of the dirt off. That's not what I'm aiming for. I want the fur off of there, the bits of people and animal that have over the years found their way under the keys and into all the little nooks and crannies. Get that part out first, and then I can move forward with getting gross. I can move forward with getting the in-between clean with a little bit of keys. Unlike other restoration videos and other people, I don't have space or equipment to do a lot of the hey, let's go outside and do this kind of stuff. I have the hey, let's stay inside and do it a different way thing going on. So, you know, things like a toothbrush here and a rag there. So it won't be perfectly clean. I don't have a water hose to spray this down with. And And seeing how brittle the plastic became, just that one key, I mean, it was just the one key, and it was probably my own fault. I did not use the key puller to pull it out. I used the tried and true pry it up from the side method using a screwdriver. And I think the twist was just enough to pop it off. And I did that with other keys and nothing bad happened. And a lot of the other keys I did use the key puller on, so, you know, sort of a 50-50 thing. And I don't think I'm gonna get this as clean as I like. Don't want it perfect. I'm not looking for like store-bought. Just, you know, I have it. It's open. The keys are off. Why? You know, why not just give it a little rub down? So I'm gonna take a quick shot at getting this cleaned up, and we will continue. And I'm losing sunlight, unfortunately. It's been a little while, and the sun is out. It does stay on this side of my building for the entire day, and as I said, you probably can't see it, but the sun's still out there, and it's warm in here. And I understand that with retrobrighting, heat is just as important as light. And I don't have a UV lamp, so sunlight's going to be my friend today. Okay. Yeah, that's and I could probably do it a little bit easier if I took this rather than my finger, because my finger is getting sore. Okay, well, you notice that as you clean something, spots of it become cleaner, and then the spots that you had just cleaned, which are now dirtier than the spot you recently cleaned, is now seemingly dirty. I don't know. It's like every time I lift up the thing, I'm like, okay, it should be cleaner now. I look at it, I'm like, oh, no, it's not. I mean, it is, but it's it's in levels. It's cleaner in levels. All right, so yeah, and more toothbrush nonsense. Get some of the gunk around the base off. Okay, that's a little better. Yeah, it's just all caked in grossness and years of candy and coffee and chocolate and whatever else you had on your fingers slipping down between the keys. Okay, well, you know what? Better or not, that is, you know, done or not, that is indeed much better. All right, so keyboard is cleaner, clean enough, cleaner than it was at least, and it's time to begin the retrobrighting process. Now, the spacebar key on this feels, looks, and acts much larger than its other compatriots, because if we take a look, it fits in my bowl, but just barely. And I've seen other people retrobright keys, and I think to myself, is like, how can the UV light get to all of those? And so I'm wondering if I have too many keys in this bowl or not. I'm new to this. I don't know anything. Some people... Now, I do know that you do want to mix water with your hydrogen peroxide, I think. And I say that because as much as I've looked up and seen retrobrighting videos, and I've watched many people do retrobrighting, no one's ever actually explained like what the parts are, like parts per million, or what percentage of X versus what percentage of Y. They just say take some hair care stuff like so and pour it in, and retrobrighting happens. And I do have some water here to like fill up the difference, and then some wrap to go over it to hold the heat in. So I'm guessing here. Know this, that I am absolutely guessing at what I'm doing, and I'm going to pour water over the top of a computer here, because that's just what you do. So I'm going to fill it about halfway up with water. And then the rest of this is going to be salon care, hair salon. Do not spill it on anything important. And there she goes. So yeah, I know you're supposed to mix the keys around. You gotta make sure all the keys are under it. There's gases involved. I don't know. I don't think that spacebar is gonna do what I think that spacebar is gonna do. All right, I want the spacebar to float a little bit. That's how I want to get this. I used most of that. It's down to about here now. I could probably use all of it, but I'm not going to bother. As for retrobrighting the case itself, I am not going to do that right now. Very simple reason is it's huge. I have nothing to put it in. So that's not going to happen. And then you take some saran wrap. Oh, big. This is inference, by the way. This is all inference information that I'm getting here. I don't know if I'm right. I'm just following along what I've seen other people do, and I'm inferring the information is correct, or you know. Ugh, I hate saran wrap. It's like one of those things. Once it starts to fall away from you, once you lose control of it, you give up. You give up. The more you try to fix it, the worse it's going to get. You cannot fix saran wrap. So, all right. So, we want to just wrap the saran wrap around. As far as I know, I don't have to leave any, or shouldn't leave any air bubbles, or any air holes for it to get out. I am going to put that in my window. The window is literally right here. It's this window right here. I'm going to put that in there and let that cook for a while. And then we're going to see what happens. So check back with me and maybe we get funny looking keys when we're done with all this. All right, so I was able to take a break and get my keys out, get them dried off. At least they're mostly dry. Probably not 100%. Are they whiter? I don't think they are. Well, okay, maybe they are. Compared to the case, falling off here. Compared to the case, they probably are a tiny bit whiter. Some of them are. The downside is I pull these two particular keys because you have the number 6 key here from the right hand side of the board, and it looks pretty clear. I mean, it looks nice and tan. You know, it's the beige color it's supposed to be with. It's a teeny tiny hint of yellow on top, and then you have the darker portion of the keys, the ones that were really bad, and that's the F key, and there is a very big delineation still between where it's yellow and where it's not. And it's probably not showing up on camera very well, but just know that this key isn't much brighter than the top of this, so the yellow is about the same. So was there some increase in brightness, whiteness? Probably, yeah. I mean, you know, compare different parts of the computer, get different colors. But was there enough? I'm gonna say absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the reason I'm saying that is because even though like the spacebar looks wonderful, especially compared to how it was, which is surprising considering how yellow it was and the fact that it stayed on top most of the time. Other keys did not fare so well. And so it was a pretty mixed bag of whether or not I got a nice clean thing. Regardless of that, I got to put the keys back on. So that's going to require some stuff, including gluing my Alt key back on. It's really funny, during my break while I was waiting for the keys to dry, I was watching Jan repair a Commodore 128. And he had actually broken off a key as well. Well, okay. No, he broke off one of these little pin things here that hook onto the little metal bars. But he had mentioned that you have to be careful not to break these pins off, so use a key puller. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, because if you twist them off, you could break the plastic because it's old. And I'm like, thanks for the warning there, Jan. But it wasn't his fault. He was actually being very helpful. I just didn't watch the video until after I made that mistake. So I'm going to start putting the keys back on here. In some semblance of order. I did take a picture. I was, you know, it's like, why do you always take a picture, guys? That's what I always ask myself when people do that. They say, well, I took a picture of it. And why did you take a picture? Well, now I know. If you didn't take a damn picture, you're going to be like, oh. Yeah, so in this photo that I have, which I'm not going to show you a picture of my phone, I'll probably transfer it and put it up on the screen there, so you're probably looking at it now. The FRTYUJIOP, those keys are all very, very yellow in comparison to the rest of the keys. Don't know why those particular keys, but the fact that it's still yellow is probably why. So I'm going to be rather strange, and I'm going to start with the most difficult keys, and that's going to be these. It's still a little wet in here. I wonder if I should let them dry longer. Probably would be prudent. Yeah, I may do that. They may have to dry a little bit longer. There's still some water, at least in my enter key there's some water, and I don't want to put that down on a plunger that's going to be touching something electronic. So we'll see. Okay, so that just leaves the last key. That's going to be the left Alt key, which of course is snapped off. Now, unfortunately, it's not snapped off in a way that says, hey, put it back on this way. So it's probably going to end up crooked. Well, you know what? Honestly, it could probably end. Whoa. Okay. Well, hey, you know what? Looks like it ended up pretty straight anyway. So it's not perfect, but I can get it on there. Now the downside is I am going to have to put the spring on and then hold it into place while I do the rest of this. So I need to pick a side. This is going to glue the whole thing together. No matter how I do this, the whole thing is going to become one big blob of plastic. Now there's no way around that. I do need to do that, I think. This is a weird applicator. You have to push it and then it dribbles. And then once it's dribbled, you wipe it off. Replace your cup. Remember to put the spring on. That's not part of the whole thing, but that's part of my thing. Make sure your key is facing in the right direction. Put it in a hole and then hold it down. And hope you got it set right, because if you didn't, you're going to have a massive issue. Now it says hold until it sets. I don't know how long it takes for this to set. I didn't put very much on it. So it could be a minute, it could be 10 minutes. So we'll wait. Okay, well, no idea if that's considered set or not, but it is on there. It is pretty straight. I had to twist it there if you noticed. And hopefully that's clear. Now, keyboard's on, or, you know, in place and everything. So let's take a quick look between keyboard and body now. Now, apologies for my lighting. I do have some yellow lighting involved, so there's going to be yellow no matter what. And I am going to take a quick photograph just to compare, because I don't really know how else to do it. It looks like it's brighter. Looks like it's brighter. I mean, it's one of those things where you're like, is it? Oh. Eh. So that's not a that's not a fair comparison, and I say that simply because, yeah, it's brighter, but it's not a fair comparison because the lighting's different. So I will show you guys both photos here, and you can decide for yourself. It could use some better retrobright, simply because I didn't have enough heat or light. Some of these keys did not go all the way in. You can tell because they popped up a little bit. This one, notwithstanding, it's supposed to be like that. It's broken on purpose. All right, but the rest of these are all in. So retrobrighting works if you do it right. I didn't. Couldn't. One of the two. Pick one. I wasn't about to quote-unquote boil my keys. I didn't want to forget that they were on the oven and have melted keys. So in the window they went, and it worked for what it's worth. And the J and the F key are still the darkest color keys, and on this screen, looking at the preview, it all looks the same color anyway. So it's a little brighter, but it's still a yellow keyboard. So you know, it didn't change much. So I probably won't be diving into the world of retrobrighting anytime soon again, especially since I broke off that key, unless it's something super important or I really need it to not be beige, which, you know, I don't care. I mean, worst case scenario, just spray paint the whole thing. Wouldn't that be fun? All right. Now there is one more thing that I do want to fix for this, but I am wary. As I said previously, my mouse button on the left side is wonky. It doesn't fully click. And so because of that, I do need to desolder the button that's in there and replace it. I have to buy these in kind of bulk. So I do have a few replacement buttons for this. These ones fit, or they should fit. That I'm going to do at a later date because soldering and me are not friends. Even if I solder just a little bit without massive amounts of ventilation, I do end up getting ill. sore throat and things like that. Last time I soldered, it was for literally 5 minutes, and I ended up with a swollen lymph node for 3 days. So either I'm allergic to flux, or it really is that powerful. So until I get some proper ventilation, that is going to wait, and it's not super important. I do also have to get the Workbench disk working, because right now it's just a blank Workbench, which means I need to get out my disk writer for my PC, plug it in, which is actually a lot more complex than it needs to be, and then write some disks to it. All right, so with everything working, well, cleaned and quote unquote retrobrighted, everything up to date as much as I want it to be, the next thing is just to get the Workbench running so that I can do things on here. Now, the 3.x ROM comes with its own custom Workbench, which I technically have access to, but apparently can't get my hands on. So I tried to make a custom one. I will admit I am extremely frustrated. This is like the 14th or 15th attempt at writing a bootable Workbench disk that can be recognized by this ROM and load. And most of the time I either get massive errors or the disk refuses to boot. So I went back, started from scratch, wrote out another disk, and I'm going to put it in now and hope something good happens, like that it boots up. Oh, there we, yay. Okay, so we got a whew, there were a lot of bugs in that. A lot of things didn't work, but that is a semi-functioning disk. Okay, so yeah, as you saw those errors, that was because I had to hammer two things together to get them to work. But as you can see, the Workbench is working, and the weird part is this is several different versions of Workbench 3.1 all crammed together. That's probably why I was throwing errors at me like crazy. But on the plus side, I now have a 3.0 ROM, or 3.x ROM, excuse me, with a what's the word I'm looking for? With a functioning Workbench. And if I can get this to work, which I did, thank God, that means I can get other things involved to work, such as some of the games that load up, because they load to Workbench first, and without a working Workbench loader, they're not going to do much. So if nothing else, I at minimum have the ability to at least boot into things. So that's a start. So with that working, I guess what we can do, I don't have much on here, just the shell and the format for reasons, but I can use the shell to do this. Yes, all my keys are functioning. Of course, we already kind of knew that. Caps lock key is on, nice big letters, give me a syntax error, unknown command, same thing. Left shift key is working, which was one that wasn't working. And then of course, all of my never keys are working, except of course for the left parenthesis, because that's just not going to work. But you know, the most important keys are still working. Speaking of which, if you guys do like what you see, yeah, unknown command. If you guys do like what you see here, whether it be my support disk, yeah, I'm trying to think and type at the same time, whether it be my Let's Plays or my quote-unquote restoration videos for what they're worth, absolutely, you know, support the channel. You can support by, well, you can support by subscribing to YouTube. You can also support by clicking that bell. Clicking the bell. And then, monetarily, if you guys wish to throw some cash my way for additional computers and things to find, games to play, whatnot, upgrades for the Amiga. My system's a little bit weird. I don't have a Patreon any longer. PayPal works, of course, but the easiest way to do this is I stream on Twitch. And so you can always subscribe on Twitch. It gives you some bonuses and also allows you to throw some little bits of change my way every now and again if you want to, in the form of bits or subs or whatever else. And if you have Amazon Prime, you get a free sub to every, or to at least one streamer on there. So that is an option. And I really don't like, I'm going to use the word pandering like that, but I like to get the word out. And besides, it gives me something to type. So that is a thing. It does work. My keyboard's working, feels really nice. I did take a quick look at a couple of comparisons. The keyboard does look better, but when you look at the whole thing, it's still yellow and brown. So better, but not greater. Not too bad, I think. More things to be upgraded on this guy later. I do want to get an RGB cable so I can get away from this mono color. Along with that, I also want to get my hands on an RGB monitor so the cable's not completely useless. I do want to get a Wicker or Witcher Eye internal card. It has space for 2 CF cards, so I can move away from, well, get a hard drive basically, but also move away from floppy disks. And then get a Gotek floppy disk emulator, which uses USB, so that I can have ADF files on that USB for whatever I want. So I can have a more modern Amiga 500 that I can program on or fiddle with or upgrade or just generally enjoy for my own keeping, my own sake, my own whatever. And then of course show all that stuff to you guys as I turn this standard Amiga 500 that was kind of working when I got it, or it was working, but just has some flaws, to something that's actually functional. And I would very much enjoy if you guys join me for that. But for now, that is going to be the end of this video. I would like to thank you very much for joining me, 4Kilobyte Short, on this episode of Short Circuits. And I will see you next video.